Do you feel like you have lost pleasure for things that used to give you pleasure? Maybe you're actually experiencing more pain in your life, and the things that used to bring you pleasure are really not helping alleviate that pain. Well, we're going to talk about that today. It is a interesting thing that goes on inside the brain, and it's very encouraging to know that this might be the reason that you feel the way you do, and that there is hope to fix that. And so Talia's going to talk about what goes on inside of our brain and why you are not to blame.
Love
So,
it.
yeah.
Anything to make us feel better. No, but really though, because there is actually a reason why you're feeling the way you do. So this is a basic kind of little scale because our brains work on this kind of balance measure. So this will kind of make more sense in a little bit, but just in general, to understand what's going on, I think a lot of people have the idea of a teeter-totter where if you have one person on one side and one person on the other side, it'll even out, especially if they're even weight or whatever. But if you add one extra to the other side, it's going to start that little tilt. And if you add even like an extra one, 3 compared to 1, that's going to get even bigger. But what some people may not understand is this next part. So I'm going to redo this little diagram and I will be right back with you. Okay, we're back. So do not get confused by the colors. The colors mean nothing. Just focus on what side they're on and the number of them. That's really what it comes down to. So we know our even scale. If there's 1 and 1 on each side, then it's going to be even. But if we add in 2 extra on one side, that scale is going to tilt to the side. Now, what we're going to find out is our brain, it works as this kind of this triangle. It always wants to balance things out. So if you move this triangle to the side without changing any of the top parts, you actually can make it even. But what happens then if later on some of them leave? Then we're going to see this happen. It's going to tilt back down, which again, our brain is not going to be wanting that. This little thing, it wants to always make it even. So it's going to move back to the middle. So now it's even again. So our brains are going to be working on this kind of level.
Okay, now that you know the physics, as Talia explained, of how that teeter-totter situation works, now we're going to apply it with actual dopamine-related content of what is dopamine and why is it such a big deal. You might have heard a lot about dopamine detoxes and things like that. I'm actually in the middle of one myself right now with a group of people. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter, it's a neurochemical, and it is a driving force in motivation, which is really important. We need dopamine, we need it to motivate us to do things. And a lot of the types of dopamine that we have had in the past, before we had all of the social media and computers and all of these things, we were driven to go hunt for food out of hunger. So dopamine was what triggered people to go hunt, right? So it's not a bad thing, it's a motivational factor. However, we are now in a society with a lot of high dopamine activities that are starting to shift things from pleasure to pain, and there's a little bit of confusion sometimes in understanding this. So Talia's going to kind of give you a visual of what goes on in your brain with dopamine, and especially high dopamine activities, because there's a distinction between things like reading, taking a walk in nature. Those things do give you dopamine. They do give a feel good. There's motivation and pleasure and everything that comes from that. However, there are certain things that we get pleasure from that are very high levels of dopamine. In fact, researchers will determine how addictive something is based on how much dopamine is in that reward pathway. So something like, I don't even know what the different levels were, but let's say something like smoking might give this much.
I think it was 150%
150
for nicotine.
Okay, for nicotine. Methamphetamines, I think, was like, I don't
Yeah, like
thousands,
crazy.
right? So there's a scale, and it's all based on dopamine and how much it is triggered in your system. And some people would say, why is that a problem? Thalia will tell you why that's a problem.
Okay, so the dopamine that we're going to be talking about right now is all the bad dopamine. So the little happy faces that are my little green guys is my dopamine. So like she was just saying, it's like the alcohol, the drugs, sex, social media, binge TV, video games, and all of these things drive pleasure. Now we've got our little red smiley faces, and those are going to be our reflex balance bullies, and they're going to cause pain. So this is actually starting from before we even get to the brain. We have a little system because we have to get the dopamine to our brain. So the little dopamine guy, we've got the thrower, we've got the catcher. So the thrower right now is at 100%. He's throwing that thing really good, just like perfect straight at the catcher, and the catcher is ready, and he's catching those dopamine little guys, molecules, and they're sending them off to the brain. So right now, everything's running great, and right now, we're just kind of neutral. But we're gonna have one of these dopamine guys kind of travel through, like we just said, and we're gonna start feeling some pleasure. We're gonna feel good. But your brain's gonna say, oh, because remember we just said it was a balancing center. We want this to be neutral. So we're gonna send in one of our reflex balance bullies, and it's reflex. So it's not even your brain's thinking about it. It says immediately, go off. So here he comes in, balances it out. Yay, we're good. But now you're feeling neutral. You just partook probably in one of these activities to feel pleasure. So now you're feeling neutral, and you're like, okay, well, I'm gonna do it again. So now we got even more pleasure. So your brain again is gonna say, that's tilting too far to the side. We need to tilt it back. So again, we're gonna send in these guys. Now we're feeling pain. So because we put in so much dopamine, now we're like, oh, we gotta go the other direction. It's kind of that idea, what goes up must come down. We're now feeling that pain. So again, you say, I wanna feel neutral, so I'm going to partake in my activity. But look, it took a lot more for you to be neutral now than you were before. This is going to be important later. So again, you're feeling neutral. You said, I wanted to feel better. I partook in like 2 things and now I'm not feeling good. So I'm going to partake even more. This is crazy amount. This is like the high tolerance of pleasure. So your body says, okay, not only do we need these reflex balance bullies, but we are going to change where our center is. That from what we were talking about before. So the brain is going to move it. So now the equal is closer to pain. So you will feel pain easier and you will feel pleasure not as much. It'll be a lot harder for you to do so. Now, this is kind of like an endless cycle of all of this where keep on going back and forth, and your body's trying to make it neutralized. But maybe she's on the dopamine detox, maybe you're on the dopamine detox, and you take out all this bad dopamine. Now we are feeling crazy amounts of pain because this guy, it was tilted to the side, but at least those guys were still kind of weighing down a little bit. Also, again, remember, the center is no longer normal. It's shifted to the side. So now you're really feeling that pain. But your body doesn't want to feel that, right? It's the same thing with this crazy pleasure. It doesn't want to be feeling that either, really, honestly. It wants to be in this neutral state. So it's going to say, goodbye, reflex balance bullies, because the dopamine's not here to bully anymore. So you gotta go. So they're going to leave. And typically they say like 30 days, but again, for a number of different reasons, it could be more. But typically around 30 days, your brain will shift that back to center, and then you'll start feeling neutral again. And you won't have this crazy teeter-tottering of all those things going on. Now, really quick, so with this whole entire crazy amount of pleasure and these balance bullies coming on in, it also ends up affecting the thrower and the catcher we were talking about before. So these guys were sending them in. So what happens if these guys were firing at 100%, now they're firing at 50, and these guys are catching at 50%? You're not gonna have nearly as much dopamine coming in, meaning you are going to want to partake in more dopamine things because you're not feeling that teeter-totter. So hopefully that somewhat made sense, but it's, I think, very, at least for me, sometimes being like, oh, like, why am I feeling this pain? Like this, like maybe, yeah, okay, it makes sense. Like I'm detoxing, but like, I don't know, at least for me, I can get pretty hard on myself. And it's like, no, this is a whole entire adaptive strategy that your brain has put together for you because it's just trying to balance all these negative things you're putting in yourself. And so I think seeing that, again, that your body can go back to normal. It won't always feel like this craziness. And you can have that neutral kind of, not teeter-totter, back and forth kind of sort of thing.
Absolutely. You know, and we're focused a lot. People love wellness. Should I come on down?
I'm like, should I go up and scoot back?
People love the idea or the topic of wellness. And I think that the problem is we aren't willing to go through some pain to get to what I would call wellness.
Yes.
This is also known as homeostasis.
Yes.
Our bodies are really, God designed us to be in homeostasis or wellness. And the problem is we don't understand that a lot of these things that are coming at us are throwing us out of wellness. And so once you realize, okay, this is actually maladaptive, and I need to step back and start adding in the healthy, I call it sustainable dopamine, but they don't do this where they're clumping on so heavy. Taking a walk in nature without having headphones on, or having a conversation one-on-one with somebody, not online in a chat forum or something like that. When you do the long-term sustainable dopamine, it keeps creating this kind of homeostasis and wellness. But sometimes you have to go through a little bit of this before you get to that, because like she said, you're so used to piling the other side of this with fast pleasure that you're never going to get it back where this fulcrum or this little triangle, you want it to be in the center so that things can balance. Over here, it's never really going to balance correctly. It's either going to be too much pleasure, too much pain, and it just doesn't figure out how to get back to wellness. So yeah, so that's what you're feeling if you're with me. Although I have to say it has not been that bad. I did notice some like kind of this sense of I'm used to listening to videos, or to me, I don't have a ton of the high dopamine activities, but I do love to listen to a lot of like videos and podcasts and stuff. And that's okay, except I want to be okay with quiet and what my mom never liked us to say we were bored, but I want to have a little bit more boredom because that's when creativity comes out. So sometimes you have to go through a little of pain when you pull things off, but then you get this. So anyway, any last minute advice for
your brain is trying to help you. Just always I know that it may be feeling like, oh, my brain's working against me. Like, oh my gosh, but it is working for you and it is trying to bring that wellness towards you.
I know, what a beautiful way to look at it too, right? That perspective, because sometimes when you're in pain, you don't think of it that way, but your brain has been trying so hard. So anyway, well, thanks so much. Thanks for being with us for this dopamine detox and Thalia's beautiful illustration. So we'll see you in the next video.